Hello and welcome to Channel 8 Sports. I'm Ryan Williams along with Leslie Gatner. Today we're in the East Brunswick High School Gymnasium for a girls gymnastic meet between the East Brunswick Bears and Shawnee. Leslie, this is the first time I have had the pleasure working with you.
Hi, Ryan. Tonight's meet should be interesting. Shawnee has typically been a powerhouse in gymnastics in New Jersey, and the East Brunswick team has a great reputation for always having a strong team also. Unfortunately, this evening, East Brunswick's team is missing their top competitor, Jackie Haft.
East Brunswick comes into the meet today with a 2-2 record. Of course, last season they finished 10-2. Meanwhile, Shawnee today coming in with a 1-1 mark.
The girls will be starting on the vaulting event. East Brunswick will lead off the meet. Each vaulting competitor has the option of performing 2 different vaults. They could also choose to just perform 1 vault.
Just so our viewers know, of course, the vault is the first event, uneven bars, then, of course, the balance beam, and followed up by the floor exercise, and that'll be today's activities. East Brunswick, coached by Lisa Scarano. Shawnee, meanwhile, headed up by Jim Morgan.
The first competitor for East Brunswick will be Tracy Schreier. Tracy will be performing a handspring vault as her first vault. This vault is worth an 8.4. That's the maximum score that this vault could be scored at. The judges will be looking for a multitude of execution deductions, whether the girl is entering the handspring and completing the handspring with a straight, tight body, pointed toes, arms must be straight on the horse.
Schreier's first attempt.
On her landing, she took 1 giant step. That would be 1/10 deduction. In the pre-flight of her vault, which is between the board and the horse, she had a piked or bent body position, so there will be a deduction for that also. The judges are also looking to see what kind of flight she gets off the horse. It's called repulsion. It's how hard the gymnast leaves the horse, how high she gets, and how far from the horse she travels.
Now for Shawnee, their first competitor on the vault, Sari Roth.
Tracy's score was a 7.15. That was a beautiful front handspring. I think you could notice the difference. That handspring was performed with a straight body in the beginning of the vault as well as at the end of the vault. She also took the 1 step at the end on her landing at the end of the vault, so she will lose a 1/10 deduction on that. Again, this vault can only be scored at an 8.4 is the maximum score the vault can receive. She's performing a second vault.
Pair of 7.8s.
That vault's called a half on, half off because she performs a half twist in the pre-flight, which is between the board and the vault, and then a half twist in the handspring coming off the horse. You can see she landed in a deep knee bend on the landing, and there will be a deduction for that. Again, they're looking for the repulsion off the horse, how hard she comes off the horse, how high she travels off the horse, and the distance from the horse. Overall, it was a pretty nice vault.
A pair of 8-1s, so she improved on her second vault.
Maximum score for that vault would have been a 9.0.
Next up for East Brunswick on the vault, Jill Turkish. Only a freshman. As she passes on her first approach and will work out her problems getting her steps down.
I didn't quite see what happened. I think perhaps somebody got in her way. We'll see. She's calling a handspring vault as her first vault, so. The gymnast wants to get a nice, hard, powerful run into the vault. And she did perform the handspring. Again, you could see that she was bent at the hip in the pre-flight of the vault. There will be a deduction for that. And then the afterflight could have been more powerful, the repulsion off the horse. Normally, if a girl gymnast balks at her first vault, she doesn't get to have a second attempt. But I do believe there was interference from another person, so she was allowed to perform it again. Her second vault is going to be a half on, half off. Half twist in the pre-flight, half twist in the after flight. It looked like she was a little short of her half, so therefore she probably only got credit for executing a quarter on in the beginning of the vault, and there will be a deduction for not performing the vault that she called, as well as the vault value of that vault is lower than a half on, half off.
6.95 on the first vault, awaiting the score on her second attempt.
The judges will score each vault individually, and then the higher average will count towards her team score. There are 4 competitors on each event from each team, and the top 3 scores from each team are counted towards the team score.
7-9 and 7-7. Bridget Kinder up now for Shawnee.
Another beautiful handspring by Shawnee. Very minimal execution deductions, perhaps a little bit on repulsion. But you could see her nice, tight, straight body in the beginning as well as the end of her vault.
A pair of 8s on that vault.
Again, that vault was worth an 8.4. She's electing to do a second vault. That's called a handspring with a full twist. It's a handspring in the beginning of the vault with a full twist in the after flight. Again, they're looking for repulsion off the horse. That's where I would say she was lacking a little. So she would probably receive several tenths deduction on that, as well as her landing. She landed in deep squat and did touch the mat with her hand, which is a deduction.
Valerie Goldstein next up for East Brunswick.
Valerie's a junior. She's been on the gymnastics team for 3 years, and her best events are vaulting and floor exercise.
7.65 for Kinder on her second vault, so she'll keep with the 8.
Valerie's first vault was a handspring vault. Again, the gymnast executed with a bent hip in the beginning or a piked position in the front of the horse, which will be a deduction. She also was lacking a little on her repulsion, but she had a nice clean landing, which will help her score. Valerie is electing to do a second vault. Her second vault is going to be a half on, half off.
7.25 for the first vault.
Not a bad vault. There again, Valerie did not quite complete the half twist going into the vault in the pre-flight. So the judges can elect to either deduct from the half on, or they can lower the value of the vault to a quarter on. There will be a deduction for not completing the half twist in the pre-flight.
Next up for Shawnee, Siobhan Haney. Awaiting the second score on Goldstein.
There's an interesting story about Siobhan Haney from Shawnee. Last year, she was the state girls all-around high school champion in gymnastics. She executed a front handspring also. Nice pre-flight, however, she piked a little in the after-flight and will receive a deduction in the after-flight phase of the vault.
Valerie Goldstein with a 7.6 score on her second vault.
Siobhan's coach told me that over the summer she was involved in a very serious car accident. And she has just now been coming back into the gym and training on all of the events. Apparently she's been reintroducing herself to gymnastics one event at a time.
7.9 on her first vault.
And that's called a Yamashita. It's a handspring. In the repulsion phase of the vault, she pikes her body and opens up to a nice solid landing.
Sarah Brockstein now up for East Brunswick. .55 for Siobhan Haney's second vault.
Sarah Brockstein is a junior on the girls gymnastics team. She was a member of the 1992 GMC All-Star team. Her first vault. Sarah performed a very clean half on, full off, half twist in the pre-flight with a full twist in the after flight. the judges will be looking at how much she blocked off the horse, or again, the repulsion that she got off the horse, the rise and the distance. The half on full off is worth a 9.2.
And an 8.85. That's the score to beat so far. The highest score in the vaulting competition. Sarah Brockstein with an 8.85 with her second attempt.
The vault that Sarah just did is a front handspring with a 1.5 twist in the afterflight. It's a very, very difficult vault, and it's worth a 9.6. Sarah's handspring was fairly clean going into the horse. I saw that her legs did separate, so that's a deduction. But she completed the 1.5 twist off the vault, which is very critical, and she should be rewarded for that also.
8.6 her score. Next up for Shawnee, Stephanie Maum, our final competitor on the vault. The score to beat, 8.85, just registered by Sarah Brockstein from East Brunswick. Attempting a handspring. Difficulty, maximum score 8.4.
Very pretty handspring, very nice tight body in the pre-flight, slight pike in the afterflight, but you could see she got a lot of repulsion up off the horse, and she took one hop on her landing. Therefore, she'll receive a 1/10 deduction for the landing. Stephanie's going to be performing a second vault. Stephanie has a nice, powerful run entering her vault, which attributes to the power that she's getting off the horse.
7.95 on Stephanie's first vault. Now vault number 2.
Ooh. Stephanie's second vault was a front handspring with a full twist in the afterflight, similar to the vault we saw from Sarah Brockstein, except Sarah completed an extra half twist in the afterflight. Nice clean vault, except her landing was not a solid landing. Took a couple of steps back, therefore she'll lose 2 to 3/10.
So just awaiting the score on the second vault by Stephanie Maum. The uneven bars, the next event. Getting that final score on Maum, an 8.7. So that score places her second.
Behind Sarah Brockstein of East Brunswick.
Sarah Brockstein with an 8.85 on her first vault. With an 8.85, that gives her the title today as the best vault. And then Maum finishes second with an 8.7, and Siobhan Haney registered an 8.55.
As I mentioned at the opening of the program, Jackie Haft, a junior on the gymnastics team, is currently out with mononucleosis. She was the 1992 Central Jersey all-around champion and the 1992 state vaulting champion. So East Brunswick is seriously missing Jackie's performance this evening. Apparently she will be out for a few more weeks. They're hoping that she will return in time to wrap up the season, perhaps enter the sectional tournament. The girls this evening are also trying to get qualifying scores to enter that sectional tournament. On the vaulting, the girl needs to score in two meets an 8.35 average 2 times during the season in order to enter the sectional tournament. On the uneven bars, which we will be beginning momentarily, the girls need to score a 7.75 average 2 times during the season to enter that meet.
So as we just saw in the vault, we had 3 competitors who gained the necessary score to reach those sectionals. Siobhan Haney, of course, Stephanie Maum, and Sarah Brockstein from East Brunswick.
And apparently Sarah had already qualified on the vaulting in 2 previous meets this season.
Putting some powder, some chalk on the uneven bars. Grip very important in this event.
Yes, they like to chalk up those bars so that the girls don't slip off. The girls put chalk on their hands. Many of the girls wear special hand grips. Coach is applying some water. Water may be used on the bar, but nothing else. The mixture of water and chalk gives them a nice surface to hold on to. The uneven bars have changed a lot over the past several years. You used to see a lot of skills that were performed from one bar to another, but now you're seeing the high bar being used a lot like you see the men's high bar used. A lot of giant swings, release moves at the upper levels of girls' gymnastics. On the uneven bars, the girls have certain requirements that they must perform. If they do not meet all those requirements, there is a 1/10 deduction for every requirement that they're lacking. Some of these requirements are they must execute a half twist, a handstand, a somersault, which many of the girls will be doing in their dismount, a circling and swinging skill, a kip, a reed grasp element. Up now is Bridget Kinder from Shawnee. She began with a glide kip, toe on to a back sole circle, another back sole circle, reed grasp to a long hang kip, and swing to a straddle back, slight touch on the mat, straddle cut, catch to a kip, slight pause. I believe that was a good cover-up. A long hang kip, immediately casting into her dismount, which was a layout flyaway. It's important that the girls not hesitate between their skills. Every time they hesitate, there is a deduction for an extra swing. And in addition to that, they're being deducted because they did stop. The extra swing deduction is 0.3, plus if they pause, in addition to that, it's another 1/10. So it's a total of a 0.4 deduction every time they stop between elements. So that adds up very quickly.
So one of the keys that the judges are looking for certainly is the fluidity of the routine.
Exactly. Nice, smooth, continuous routine. They're looking for the various skills the girls are performing. They must do a minimum of 3 superior and 4 medium elements. This type of scoring is unique to high school gymnastics by National Federation rules. And if they don't execute 3 superiors and 4 elements, then they will be deducted. They also are looking for one element that's called a high superior skill, and that's worth an extra 3/10 if the girl has it. If the girl does not have that high superior element, then she loses 3/10 in her score.
For Next up for East Brunswick, Jill Turkish.
Jill is an all-around gymnast and is a freshman this year. Her best events are beam and floor exercise.
.6 for Bridget Kinder on her routine.
Glide with a half twist to a kip. There she's stopping. And a back sole circle, half turn, kip up. A front hip circle. It's casting to a squat on. She's moving to the high bar, that's a requirement. They must move from high bar to low bar. Back hip circle, that's her circling element. Front hip circle. And her somersault skill is her flyaway dismount. Overall, that was a fairly good routine. However, you did notice that she did stop a lot between her skills, and that comes through a lot of training and just doing a lot of routines in practice. As the season goes on, you should see her eliminating many of those stops.
Of course, with Jill, she had to get her 2 events out of the way before she gets to her 2 specialties, the beam and the floor. So she's already gone through the vault and now the uneven bars.
She gets to finish up strong, more confidently, probably. The next competitor from Shawnee will be Sari Roth. Gymnasts are also looking for some originality in the routines. Many times the girls perform what's called a stock routine, which is a routine that is typically performed by perhaps many girls on their team, or a routine that you see a lot of the girls performing because it has elements that they can all do without much difficulty. So they're looking for some skills that show some originality in the creation of the routine. Glide with a half twist to a kip. Front hip circle, no hesitation, squatting on. Back uprise, that's a very difficult move. It's of a high superior skill. Into a back sole circle. Front hip circle. And long hang kip, immediately casting into a layout flyaway. The layout flyaway is also high superior, and if the girl executes more than the one high superior, she can get what's called bonus points. So she will have received a 1/10 bonus point for executing 2 high superior skills.
Sari very happy with herself after that performance. See the smile on her face.
It was a nice routine. I don't recall she had any stops in between, so that will help her a lot in her score.
Just backtracking, the score for Jill Turkish, a 4.7 on her uneven bar exercise. Next up for East Brunswick will be Vicky Chan. Chan, a 3-year member, a senior and captain of this East Brunswick squad. Her best event will come later on, the next event, which is the beam. She was the all-around champion in 1992 at the GMC novice meet.
The girls' uneven bar routine must consist of a minimum of 8 skills. If they perform 7 skills, there would be a 1/10 deduction for not meeting that requirement. The officials are conferring at this time. Their scores must be within a certain number of tenths of each other. And if when they submit their scores, there's too big of a discrepancy, then they can have a conference. In the event, perhaps one missed a skill or they had a difference of opinion to bring the score closer together.
Looks like they got things straightened away there.
They've come to an agreement.
Meanwhile, head coach Lisa Scarano was able to confer with Vicky Chan before her routine. So I think there was a mistake.
There we go.
7.95. There was a 0.9
Much
difference
better.
the first time.
Not allowed. Vicky performed a glide kip. Extra swing before her squat on. Slight pause here. To a back straddle, superior element to a glide kip. Casting onto a front sole circle. To another glide kip. The kip is a requirement. Long hang kip. Into a back hip circle, it's a circling element. And completing with a flyaway dismount. The officials are also looking for the execution of each skill. They're looking to see that the skill is performed without stopping. The skill is performed with straight legs, pointed toes, arms are straight. If the girl is performing a casting skill, then it's done with a high cast.
The next competitor for Shawnee, Stephanie Maum. She registered the second highest score in the vault apparatus with an 8.7, now competing on the uneven bars.
All of these gymnasts, or I would expect that most of the gymnasts, are practicing their gymnastics year-round at private clubs. Shawnee is from South Jersey, and these girls probably come from 1 or 2 of the private clubs down there, as well as the East Brunswick girls will be working out at clubs near the East Brunswick area. And you rarely find a high school gymnast anymore who competes only during the high school season.
It's really an all-around, all year long training session for these gymnasts.
Yes,
5'9" and 5'6" for Stephanie Maum.
again, the qualifying score that the girls are looking to obtain is a 7.75 average. The coach is chalking up the bar, ordering it down, getting it ready for his next competitor. The girls tend to get pretty fussy. Each girl has their own preference of how they like the bars. You can see the girls are working the bars very wide apart. That also has developed over the last several years. The girls used to work them much closer together, but now that they're doing many more swinging skills and the giants and more of a high bar type of skill, the bars have been pushed out to accommodate that. A little team chatter there, encouraging her.
Must be very important to set those bars at exactly the same distance, because if you're used to practicing at your home gym where you have the feel for your normal equipment, and then you go, especially for an away meet like this is for Shawnee, to be very particular on where those bars are set.
Very true. She started her routine with a jump full turn into a glide kip mount, double back soul circle, straddle cut, nice flight above the bar, front hip circle, swing into a back straddle, superior skill, jamming through, long hang kip, slight pause here, which will hurt her. Attempting to cast to a handstand with a giant swing, nice giant, a slight bend on the knees to a beautiful layout semi-dismount. The fact that she paused between the layout and the giant swing, I mean the long hang kip and the giant swing, is that there's a criteria called back-to-back superiors that the girls are looking to obtain. And they must have two skills that are back-to-back superior, meaning two superior elements that are performed continuously, no hesitation between them. And they must do that twice in their routine, or they receive a 1/10 deduction for every back-to-back series that they are missing. However, she paused to get herself psyched up to do that handstand. I don't think she would get credit for that handstand. They must reach the 7/8 position to get handstand credit, and I don't think she was quite there. But she had a nice giant swing after it, right into her layout dismount. She'll get a bonus 10th bonus on her layout because she received high superior credit for her giant swing. And then the extra high superior was her layout dismount.
Next up for East Brunswick, Gail Chance, a sophomore, 2-year member of the team. Her best event being the floor exercise.
Glide kip to a free back hip circle. Kip, slight pause, front soul circle. Glide kip, squatting on to a long hang kip, cast. Another long hang kip for her back-to-back superior credit. Stop before she tried to do a layout flyaway, but she piked it, so she would get credit for a pike somersault or the layout, which would give her high superior difficulty with its deduction.
The score for Stephanie Maum from Shawnee, an 8.65.
You can see Coach Lisa Sicoriano consulting with the gymnast after her routine, probably discussing the highlights and the areas where she can make improvement the next time she performs that routine.
Now we see Gail will be competing in the beam on the next apparatus. How is it for the athlete trying to go from apparatus to apparatus, making that transition, and if they make a mistake in one routine, trying to block that out heading into the next routine?
Typically, moving from apparatus to apparatus, there's no problem with that because the girls are accustomed to doing that. They train outside of high school season. They compete that way at private clubs. They train that way in the gym. However, if they do have an error and mess up on one routine, it is difficult sometimes to shake that. Depends on the event that you're going to, especially the balance beam. If you have a not so great uneven bar routine and you're feeling a little down, it's hard to get psyched on that balance beam because you are working on that very narrow apparatus. But generally, I think they are able to block out their errors and move onwards.
Siobhan Haney up for Shawnee as Gail Chance registers a 6.9 score.
Siobhan starts with a glide kip with a half twist. Toe on to a back soul circle. Nice high cast to a back upraise, beautiful, into a free hip and attempting to do a giant. Back straddle over the low bar. Nice execution on these. Another beautiful giant swing. Nice tight legs, nice tight body, into a nice layout flyaway dismount. You can see the difference in some of these girls in terms of their execution. It's pointy toes, the legs are tight and straight. Any of their casting skills are done with a nice high cast rather than just a little push away from the bar. Those are all things, criteria that the judges are looking at.
Of course, we mentioned before that Siobhan Haney, a tremendous gymnast last season, still battling back
I can't
from
even
her
imagine.
injuries.
That has got to be so difficult. What an accomplishment to even get this far.
It's a matter of retraining the entire body.
It's so frustrating. Look back at film of what you used to do. I just can't even imagine. It's a real credit to even try to retrain.
Sarah Brockstein up for East Brunswick, the final competitor on the uneven bars. She, of course, won the vaulting event with an 8.85 score. Again, looking for a 7.75 or better to qualify for the sectional.
Sarah has an excellent uneven bar routine. She will include giant swings in her routine also. Again, the maximum score any of the girls can receive on uneven bars is a 10.0 if they met all the criteria and if their execution and amplitude was perfect. I don't expect we'll see a 10.0 this evening. However, that is the maximum score.
It's very rare in gymnastics.
And the execution and amplitude criteria is worth a 4.0. So that's where most of the girls are receiving their deductions. The slightest pointed toe, slightest knee bend, they're all a minimum of a 1/10 deduction, and they add up very rapidly.
An 8.5
Glide
for
with a half twist to a kip, toe squat on. Nice cast to a back uprise, very pretty. Back hip circle, back straddle over the low bar, regress move. Long hang hip, immediately casting to a handstand. Pretty giant swing, much improved on that. Another giant swing, a little loose in her back, and a layout flyway. That was a nice routine by Sarah. You could tell her back was arched a little bit on her giant, so she'll receive a little deduction, but her legs were nice and straight, her toes were pointed, and her layout flyaway was very pretty.
Siobhan Haney did register an 8.5 on her vault from Shawnee, awaiting the score for Sarah Brockstein. Coming in with a 35-point overall all-around average. She kind of steps to the forefront now with Jackie Heft being out temporarily. Of course, Sarah and Jackie both juniors, so should form a strong nucleus for next year's squad.
Yes, they should be a real dynamo next year. A lot of competition in the conference this year, too. Kind of have the ebbs and tides of competitions. And for many years now, East Brunswick has still been the dominating force in gymnastics.
And Sarah Brockstein with a 9.0.
Nice score. It's a nice routine. Nicely done.
So she wins the vault, and she wins the uneven bar.
I think she's probably feeling very happy about that.
I think so. It's a safe guess, I would imagine. Next up, the balance beam. We'll see the same 4 gymnasts competing for East Brunswick as we did in the uneven bars.
And again, the top 3 scores in each event count towards their team score. Quick rundown on the requirements for the balance beam routine. The girls must perform a 360-degree turn on any base of support, or it may be a skill that's performed in the air, twisting skill in the air. They must show a balance skill. It could be a handstand. It could be a scale. Some type of a handspring, aerial, or somersault, which many of the girls will do as their dismount. They must show a flexibility skill. Jump or leap performed at or above knee level. They must perform a dance series, a tumbling series, which means tumbling skills directly connected, no pause between them. And their dismount must be of superior difficulty.
Jill Turkish up for East Brunswick.
Jump to a squat on the beam, that's a superior mount. A leap. Dance series.
And this is one of Jill's stronger areas, the balance beam.
So a back walkover. That a girl, she saved it. If she were to have fallen, she would lose half of a point in deduction. She pauses before her back handspring. She will receive credit for that back handspring because her feet did land on the beam before she fell. And I'm sure she's working to connect that back walkover to the handspring. Pike jump, pike jump. Full turn, another requirement.
Again, a nice save. Jill came in with an all-around average of 27 points. Still only a freshman, showing a lot of promise.
Cartwheel, done nicely. To a tuck jump, that's a requirement. And a branny for a dismount, which fulfills the somersaulting requirement. That was a nice routine by Jill. Again, one of the major areas that the judges are looking at is the execution and amplitude. And again, the gymnasts are looking to point those toes, keep the legs straight, tight. Amplitude, which would reflect in the gymnast's stretch of the body, how high her leaps and jumps are performed on the beam or off the beam.
Now a gymnast we haven't seen yet today, Lindsay Wietrick for Shawnee, competing on her first apparatus.
Once again, the officials are conferring on the score. Actually, Jill was the first competitor. And at every event, after the first competitor, the officials must confer with each other.
It's got to be tough there, waiting to start your routine.
Yeah, that's just when you're ready to go, they make you wait and wait and wait. The officials are comparing their notes on their difficulty to make sure they rewarded the gymnast for the equal amount of difficulty. They're looking at the event requirements to make sure that they have each given her the event requirements as she performed them. They're comparing their execution and amplitude deductions and checking to see if they both gave bonus points if applicable.
Now through 2 events, your team score, Shawnee leading 50.35 to East Brunswick 45.9.
That's a tough spread to make up at this point in the meet. However, floor exercise is probably one of East Brunswick's stronger events, so they should pull it together for that event.
Now Lindsay Wietrick finally is able to begin her routine.
Straddle cut mount. Leap jump, jump for her dance series. Back walkover, back walkover. Slight pause between the back walkover, so I don't know if they'll give her tumbling series. The gymnast must work down on the beam, as she's doing now.
Again, that's a half a point deduction now.
Full turn. She'll receive credit for the full turn, but lose the half a point for the fall.
At this point, just trying to finish up strong, working towards a strong dismount.
The coach is moving in there for a little moral support. Cartwheel, back somersault, which gives her her back-to-back superior difference.
And she finished up strongly. Jill Turkish with a 6.35 on her beam routine. Next up, for East Brunswick, Gail Chance will take her turn on the beam. we saw Gail for the first time perform on the uneven bars.
Some last-minute encouragement from Coach Lisa Scarano.
Gail, a sophomore, coming in with an all-around average of 30 points. Still waiting to get to her first event, or her best event, excuse me, which is the floor exercise. And she will mount from straight on rather than from the side.
Officials are checking their scores. On the balance beam, as I mentioned, the officials are looking to see that the girls are working on the beam at some point, that they're down on the beam, as well as showing some amplitude in their leaps, dance, tumbling on the beam. They're looking for a fluid, continuous routine without too many pauses, stops, hesitations. They're looking for skills that are connected together rather than one skill, stop, another skill. They're looking to see that the skills move smoothly in and out of each other.
So as we saw on Lindsay Wietrich's last turn on the beam, there's a slight bit of a judgment call on whether or not the pause is just slight enough where you could string those two moves together, or whether or not you actually count that pause, as you mentioned, during her routine.
Exactly. And that can, you know, it can be very subjective.
As in all sports, a judgment call when it comes down to the officials. As we see them talking over the score once again. Perhaps that's what they're debating, is actually what you just pointed out. Of course, we'll never know that, but we'll have to wait and see on the score.
Gail's ready to mount the beam. Mounting on with a superior mount, jumping off 2 feet to landing on the beam. Opening with some dance. Pretty side handstand to a planche. It's her balance skill. Superior skill for the planche. Full turn, another requirement. Her dance series, leap, jump, jump. Some pretty jumps. back walkover, and she would receive credit for that immediately into a tuck jump. They're looking to see that they combine a dance and a tumbling element together. Slight hesitation on that one, but perhaps they'll give her credit.
Pretty fluid routine so far.
Yes, it is. She's working down on the balance beam. Gail works very pretty on the beam. Good stretch. And a Brandy dismount with a solid landing.
She's very happy with that routine.
She stuck it.
The score for Lindsay Wietrich, a 6.7 on her last routine.
Again, the girls are trying to meet qualifying scores on the balance beam. That would be a 7.75 average. They would have to receive that 2 times in the season to enter the sectional tournament in that event.
Gail being congratulated by her teammates after that.
Yeah, and at this point, East Brunswick really needs to just stick beam to at least remain competitive with Shawnee.
Bridget Kinder, the next competitor up for Shawnee. She's an all-around gymnast. Will be competing in all 4 events today.
Bridget's ready to mount the balance beam. Her mount is also a squat on, superior mount. Showing her balance element. her leap and dance series. Back handspring, pausing and preparing for a second back handspring, which eventually she's hoping to connect those two together. She'll get back-to-back superior credit. The required full turn, slight bobble. Back walk over into a tuck jump. The other requirement, tumbling skill into a dance element. She's preparing for her dismount. Cartwheel. Unfortunately, she fell on the landing of that cartwheel. Second attempt, cartwheel, back tuck, dismount. Again, the coach standing in just for some moral support. If the coach were to touch the gymnast, there would be a deduction, but the coach is allowed to stand there without touching or spotting the gymnast. The balance beam routine must be no less than 1 minute long and no longer than 1 minute and a half. At 1 minute 20 seconds, there is a timer who will call out a warning to the gymnast that her time is about to expire. The gymnast may complete the routine, and if she passes 1.5 minutes, then there is a deduction for exceeding the time limit.
So Vicky Chan up for East Brunswick. The score for Gail Chance, an 8.05. The last East Brunswick competitor. So far, that's the score to beat. We're waiting for Bridget Kinder's score, but as we said before, Vicky Chan now up.
Testing out her board. Last minute encouragement from teammate and your coach. And Vicky's ready to begin.
And a 7.25 for Kinder.
Attempt to jump to 2 feet, I believe. Those half a points can really hurt a team, especially if it's a close meet. Back walkover. Back walkover. Pausing between the walkovers and a tuck jump. Split leap, pike jump, another pike jump for her dance series. Working down on the beam as required, showing some flexibility.
Now we see Vicky wearing an ankle brace over her left ankle.
Valdez, it's a superior element, trying to connect it to a tuck jump. The required full turn, working nicely out of it. Showing her balance skill. And Brandy with a half twist. Some execution deductions on that dismount. Overall, a nice routine by Vicky. As the girls progress through the season, any of the hesitations between skills, they're working to eliminate so that they can have a more fluid and continuous routine.
Still very early on in the season at this point, and later on we'll see much more polished routines, I'm sure.
I think so too.
Stringing the moves together, as you said. Beth Huxford will be the next competitor up for Shawnee. First time we've seen Beth so far today. She will also compete in the floor exercise.
It's interesting seeing a meet against Shawnee because they're not from our conference. Most of the girls' meets are teams within their own conference, so it's nice to travel outside your conference and pick up some other competition. They probably went into this meet fairly blind, not knowing what they were scoring. Next gymnast ready to mount.
7.25 for Chan.
Superior mount, squat on. Jump 3/4 turn. Pretty back handspring, pausing. And performing another back handspring. Little bobble. Split leap. Sassone. She needed one more to have her dance series. Some pretty dance. She works very nicely on the balance beam. Her full turn, little bobble. Pike, pike. Back walk over to a handstand, coming down on the beam, showing her work on the beam. Pretty. She works nicely. She tries to keep her routine moving. Back walk over. Slight hesitation into her tuck jump. She's trying to meet that requirement. Oh, good spotting by the coach. Round off back tuck. That's a credit to her. She tried to pull it out, and she did.
Very dangerous there at the end there. A nice recovery.
Bit of a deduction, but she saved it. That's a hairy one. It'll be tough to do that the next time she has to practice that dismount.
It's tough up there. Not too much room for an error,
No,
as we just saw.
Not at all. And they can perform very confidently until something like that happens, and it can really shatter their nerves for a while. I hate to see that happen.
I guess the key for that is just the next time, just go right back up on the beam and start attacking it like it never happened.
If it was a practice session, she'd be up there right now executing that again.
Sarah Brockstein now for East Brunswick. She's the overall leader so far today. She won both the uneven bar and the vaulting events.
Sarah's having a good night. A lot of the gymnasts are trying to enhance the level of the routine through more difficult jumps and leaps and turns. It's nice to see that because lately it's been mostly tumbling skills. I think we've kind of reached a limit as to
It's being a little bit more creative on the mounts and the dismounts.
mounts, dismounts, the dance elements. Because your high school gymnast is not going to be able to perform the tumbling skills with the same difficulty as the gymnast you might see on TV or even at high-level club competition. So it's nice to see them being able to enhance their routine through other types of difficulty that aren't quite as dangerous and difficult. I shouldn't say difficult. Actually, they're probably equally as difficult, just not quite as dangerous.
Again, waiting for the judges to score on Huxford. So Sarah will have to wait, chat with her coach a little bit.
Again, they're checking to make sure that they rewarded the gymnast the same amount of difficulty. Bonus credits if it applies to that routine. Sarah's ready to begin. Squat on mount. Opening with some pretty dance. Atta girl. Back handspring to a layout back handspring. Very nice. Slight execution problem, but according to Coach Scarano, she hasn't been sticking many of those, so I'm sure she's very pleased with herself, as is her coach. Oh, leap, leap, jump, dance series. Could have executed those leaps a little better, but right now I think she's just probably very happy over that tumbling skill. Side aerial, another difficult skill. Big bobble, but great save. Sarah looks so pretty on the beam because she's so tall and slim. Full turn with a half. Looking to fulfill all those requirements. That's her balance scale as required. Getting ready for her dismount. Round off with a full twist dismount. Very nicely done. Little step back, slight pike on the dismount.
But she's very happy
nice
with that
dismount.
routine.
She should be. Terrific. That's probably the best routine she's done all season.
Stephanie Maum will be the final competitor on the beam, competing for Shawnee. But Sarah Brockstein so far has had a very good day. She scored an 8.85 on the vault, a 9.0 on the uneven bars, and just performed a very nice routine on the beam. And a 9.3 score for Sarah. She and her teammates extremely happy with that score. Stephanie Maum now for Shawnee.
An unusual mount. Oh, pretty. Neat knee spin, knee turn on the balance beam. Another pretty gymnast. Beautiful leaps, beautiful jumps. Oh, split jump with a quarter turn. She's so clean. Oh, that's a shame. Very pretty back handspring series. Unfortunately, her foot was not quite on when she landed them. Working on the balance beam. Flexibility, pretty. To a Valdez. Dance skill into a tumbling skill. Pretty round off. Slide off on the landing. They have to be right on top of that balance beam to be able to stick these tricks. Jump full turn. That's a perfect example of increasing the difficulty through some dance elements. Difficult dance elements. Back handspring into a full twisting layout dismount. Pretty routine. Unfortunately, she had a little difficulty sticking those skills.
So that concludes the competition on the balance beam. The floor exercise next up, the final apparatus. Awaiting for that final score on Stephanie Maum, but Sarah Brockstein with a 9.3 will win her third straight event. So Brockstein's having perhaps one of her finest days in competition.
I'll be anxious to see what her all-around total is as it compares to any of her other meets. Girls preparing to move to the floor exercise. Floor exercise routines are done as a combination of dance and tumbling skills performed to music. Again, there is a time restriction, same as on the balance beam. No shorter than 1 minute and no longer than 1.5 minutes.
So far, 27.15 overall score for Sarah Brockstein with the floor exercise still to come, and a 7.45 for Stephanie Maum.
Sarah should be on her way to a very nice all-around total this evening.
So Sarah Brockstein wins the balance beam with a 9.3. Beth Huxford from Shawnee registers an 8.35, and Gail Chance from East Brunswick with an 8.05 to finish third on the beam.
The score in three events, Shawnee 73.4, East Brunswick 70.5.
So East Brunswick closing the gap a little bit on that team score. 73.4 for Shawnee, 70.5 for East Brunswick.
They closed it quite a bit. Sarah Brockstein's routine without any falls, I'm sure, helped. Shawnee had some difficulty, so unfortunately they gave East Brunswick a little help every time they fell off the beam. It just helped us that much more.
Still difficult. That's a lot of ground to make up. But as you mentioned before, East Brunswick, perhaps this is their finest event in the floor exercise.
Yes, they should have good performances on the floor exercise this evening. And it could be one of their more higher scoring events. Probably is their highest scoring event.
So what kind of things should we be looking for from the East Brunswick gymnasts in this with the different tumbling runs and which skills they must demonstrate?
Again, the girls are looking to fulfill the difficulty requirement, which is a minimum of 3 superior skills, 4 medium skills, and that 1 high superior element, which would be a twisting skill. It could be a very difficult dance skill. Officials are looking to see that they're performing a skill with twist in it, half a twist or more. Most of the girls will probably not be performing that skill. Will be probably a common deduction.
Bridget Kinder up first for Shawnee. And this is really one of the events where the personality of the gymnast can come out through the use of the music and appealing to the crowd.
Exactly. Opening with a round off, back handspring layout. Superior tumbling pass. A leap series, which fulfills her dance series requirement. Round off jump, that's a dance to tumbling requirement.
Now preparing for her second tumbling run.
There's a front handspring to a round off, back handspring, back somersault in a tuck position. That fulfills her tumbling requirement because she went forward. The gymnast must show 2 different directions of tumbling. And by executing that front handspring, she was showing forwards tumbling. Handstand with a double pirouette that she just performed is a high superior skill. Some dance moves as she prepares for her last tumbling pass. Round up 2 back handsprings into an attempt at a back layout.
Very nice routine by Bridget Kinder from Shawnee.
Actually, that was a strong finish for Bridget. She finished her routine with a back-to-back superior tumbling pass. Her 2 back handsprings equaled 1 superior. Combined with her layout was another superior. The gymnasts are also to see that the girls are just equally distributing their skills, that they're not just doing the more difficult skills in the beginning when they have the most energy. They want to see that they have the endurance and stamina to execute those skills towards the end of their routine also, which Bridget did do.
Jill Turkish up for East Brunswick, of course an all-around competitor and performing in what is probably her finest event.
Again, as on the bars and the balance beam, the officials are looking to see the routine that is fluid and continuous, which is much more easily done on the floor exercise because it's the nature of the event.
A little bit more room to work with on that mat rather than on the balance beam.
And with the dance and the tumbling, they work well together. They're looking for some originality. Of all the events, this is the easiest place to show some uniqueness and originality in your routine. Again, that would come out through the personality of the individual gymnast. Girls with a strong dance background also have an advantage on the floor exercise since it's equally a dance and tumbling event.
Do a lot of these gymnasts perform and take dance lessons to try and augment their floor exercise abilities?
Right. I'm sure many of the girls have had dance training either prior or during their gymnastics, and probably at their private clubs they even have dance workouts.
8.15 the score for Bridget Kinder as Jill Turkish is up.
Two straddle jumps. Preparing for her first tumbling pass. Now 2 back handsprings to a back layout. Back-to-back superior to pass. Leap series. Attempting, not quite complete. She was attempting to do a double pirouette, and she did a 1.5.
Very close to stepping out.
Round up back handspring, back layout to 2 back handspring. It's another back-to-back superior tumbling pass. Attempted a Shushanova.
Her final tumble
Getting
run.
ready for a final pass, that's right. 2 back handsprings into a back somersault. Again, showing that she has the endurance to tumbles hard at the end. Working down the floor. Good job. She made it through that last tumbling pass. That's difficult to do those 2 back handsprings into a somersault at the end of the routine, but as the season's progressing, the girls should develop more endurance and be able to do that successfully. Again, on the floor exercise, as on the balance beam, the officials are looking to see that the girls are using all the areas and space available to them. They're tumbling in the air, they're leaping in the air, they're working on the floor, they're hitting all the 4 corners of the floor exercise mat, staying within the white line that Ryan mentioned before. Jill almost stepped out, but she saved it nicely.
Beth Huxford will be the next competitor for Shawnee. As the scores are coming in for Jill Turkish. .7 for Jill.
The officials are conferring over something. See if that score stands.
Again, shooting for that score to qualify for the sectionals. 8.25.
Correct, 8.25 on floor exercise. Floor exercise tends to be a higher scoring event. That's why the qualifying score is higher than on the balance beam and floor exercise and the uneven bars. .7 score for Jill remains.
So now Beth Huxford for Shawnee. Little Billy Joel music.
Opening routine with some dance as she sets for her opening tumbling pass. Round off, 2 back handsprings into a laid out somersault. A laid out somersault is a somersault performed in a straight body position. She executed her dance series with a series of leaps and jumps, showing front tumbling to a back somersault, working out right away to a round of back handspring, back somersault. Working down on the floor as is required. Dive roll. Round off to a jump. It's a requirement to combine a tumbling element with a dance skill. Showing some stamina. Last tumbling pass is a back-to-back tumbling pass, back-to-back superiors. Finishing with her dance. It's important that the gymnasts work equally hard on their dance, because for every leap and jump that's performed without height, without pointed toes, without straight legs, there are deductions, and they add up very rapidly.
Beth a little bit tired after that routine.
I think so.
Came over and crashed on the other mats. Now she'll get up and walk around a little bit, but
catch your breath a little.
a lot of activity in about 1.5 minutes, 1:15 there.
Yes, there is. It just takes a lot of conditioning. The girls just have to do a lot of routines, as with any kind of conditioning for any sport. The more they do, the easier it becomes, in theory.
Valerie Goldstein, the next competitor for East Brunswick. 3-year member, a junior. Her best events, vaulting and the floor exercise. She waits The scores, 7.65 for Beth Huxford.
Opening a routine showing some work on the floor. Beginning with a val does to a jump, meeting that requirement. Jump full turn, another requirement. Setting up for her opening tumbling pass. Round up 2 back handsprings to a back tuck, which fulfills the back-to-back superior tumbling requirement. Pretty toe spin. Preparing for her next pass. Round off back handspring, back somersault. Lack of a little height on that last somersault. Little flexed feet there. Valerie needs to work a little on her execution, pointing her toes, tightening her knees. And her last tumbling pass. Showing her front tumbling. Round up, front walk out to a round off 2 back handsprings, fulfilling the tumbling requirement of 3 passes in 2 directions. Getting congratulations from Coach Scarano. She completed the routine without any major problems.
Up for Shawnee, Shawnee.
Again, through conditioning and repeating these routines over and over and over again, the girls will improve in their execution and amplitude.
Again, still very early in the season, and later on in the year when it comes time for the sectionals and everything like that, the state meets.
They should be peaking about then.
That's always the plan.
Yes.
Now Siobhan Haney for Shawnee. Again, last year, the state champion. She awaits her turn. 7.1 score for Valerie Goldstein.
Pretty dance. Her opening tumbling pass. Round off back handspring with a full twist. The first full twist we've seen today.
Showing a lot of energy out there on the mat.
Round up to a jump straddle, her dance tumbling combination. Second tumbling pass. Round off that handspring, back tuck. Nice height on that tumbling pass. Showing a little personality in her dance.
Playing to the crowd a little bit.
A little encouragement from her teammates.
Little audience participation on that one. The clap.
Her dance series, full turn. Preparing for her final tumbling run. Executing it. Nice routine by Siobhan. Very clean, pretty dance.
Up for East Brunswick, Gail Chance. On deck, Shawnee. Stephanie Mayo.
Gail Chance, the third competitor for East Brunswick. On the floor, of course, Sarah Brockstein, the overall leader, will compete last.
Gail works very nicely on the floor exercise. She has pretty dance, strong tumbling. We should see a nice performance by her today.
Remembering to smile as she gives a thumbs up to her teammates. Awaiting the scores on Siobhan Haney.
And she's awaiting the judge's signal. The girls cannot begin any performance without a signal from the official signal that they are ready to score the routine. And at the conclusion of the routine, you've probably noticed that they've presented themselves to the official when they're done as required. She looks very ready to begin.
Very anxious. Couple of deep breaths and look to the side, and now ready to begin.
Here she begins. Pretty opening pose. Opening tumbling pass. And up back handspring with a full twist. There's another full twist. It's a high superior skill. A little loose on it. She'll receive a little deduction. Her dance series. Showing some originality in dance. Nice back tumbling pass. Round up back handspring with a whip back into 2 back handsprings with a somersault. Her round off to straddle jumps, fulfilling that requirement, working down on the floor as necessary. Double spin, surpassing her requirement of 1 full turn. Showing front tumbling, front walk out to round up back handspring tuck. A little weak on that tumbling pass. Nice routine by Gail. Gail fulfilled all the event requirements for that routine.
Bobbled a little bit on that final tumbling run, but
yes, quite a few execution deductions in her tumbling passes and a little bit in her dance.
showing a lot of personality, though, as you pointed out, with the dance part of her routine. Siobhan Haney with a score of 8.9 on her floor exercise. So she's the leader right now. Stephanie Maum next up for Shawnee. Of course, we'll have to await the judges' score for Gail. Stephanie looking very focused, awaiting her turn. And an 8.15 for Gail Chance.
Gail just missed qualifying with that score. She needed an 8.25 to meet the qualifying requirement. Expressive dance. A double spin. And ready for her first tumbling pass. Round up with a very pretty full twist. Nice, straight, tight body on that full twist. That's what the officials are looking for. That's how it should be done.
A lot of height and extension.
Definitely. Nice leap. Get ready for our next tumbling run. Showing front tumbling into a back somersault.
Oops, she stepped out.
Stepping out. That will be a 1/10 deduction off her average score. Work on the floor. Handstand with a double pirouette is an additional high superior. She'll receive bonus credit for that and was performed very nicely. Round up to her straddle, dance and tumbling combination. And her last tumbling pass. Finishes with a full twist, very difficult at the end of a routine. Finishing with that full twist, those are the things that will differentiate in the scores between the gymnast that's doing an average routine and the gymnast that's giving that little extra. Even though her difficulty requirement might be equal to one of the former competitors, the fact that she's throwing a full twist at the end of her routine will enhance that routine in the scoring.
Unfortunate for Stephanie that she did step out on her second run.
It won't hurt her too much, though. They'll average their scores and then take a 10th off of that.
So getting ready for the final competitor today, Sarah Brockstein, who, as we said so far, has swept the first 3 events, trying to win the all-around. Most likely has secured it anyway with a reasonable score on the floor exercise.
That routine we just saw, that's going to be a hard one to beat for Sarah. But she works very nicely on the floor exercise, so she could do it. Rating the score.
Again, Sarah, a very tall gymnast. Which certainly helps her when the judges look artistically. And
she's one of the tallest gymnasts that I've seen, and she handles it so nicely. It's great to see. Because a lot of times the girls, you know, when they're young and short and petite, they work much. It's easier to move the body.
A lot easier to.
And unfortunately, hit that growth spurt, and sometimes we lose a lot of formerly good gymnasts to adolescence because it just becomes more difficult to perform the skills.
Most of the gymnasts, of course, that you think of in the Olympics, of course.
Yeah, they're
usually
14,
smaller.
15, 16-year-olds. That's when they're peaking.
A 9.2 for Stephanie Morum, so
Nice score for Stephanie.
it's going to be hard to beat for Brockstein.
Pretty opening pose for Sarah on the floor.
Very dramatic music.
Jump, almost double jump. Opening tumbling run. Front tumbling pass to her full, very pretty, nicely done. Nice straight body on that full twist. Working out of that front handspring front is difficult too. Leap series. Working down on the floor. Gainer back handspring. Second tumbling pass, round off back handspring back layout. Nicely done, slight execution deduction. Her bonus high superior handstand double pirouette. Pretty round off straddle jump. Beautiful height on that straddle jump. Getting ready to conclude her routine with her last tumbling run. And round off back handspring, full twist. She also finished her routine with a full twist into a pretty split pose.
Now it's up to the judges.
Yes. Little lack of stamina and aggressiveness on that last full twist. But she did it. She made it.
Whatever the score winds up, Shawnee has apparently won the meet from an overall team standpoint.
It's a good competition for East Brunswick. Very close competition. And that's very good for the girls, too. It's hard if they're competing against teams that are scoring significantly lower than them. It's hard to push yourself to perform at your peak. Competition like this is great for them.
And a 9.45 for Sarah Brockstein, so
Nice
she
score
sweeps.
for Sarah.
She wins every event.
Excellent score for Sarah's floor exercise routine. And that leaves Sarah as the all-around champion from today's meet.
Sarah's lowest score during the competition was an 8.85 on the vault. She scored a 9.0 on the uneven bar, a 9.3 on the beam, and then a 9.45 on the floor. The final, though, Shawnee does win the meet, 99.65 to East Brunswick's 95.8. So East Brunswick certainly made up a lot of ground on the last two apparatus, but the hole that they dug on the first two was just too much to overcome.
Yes, it was. But overall, East Brunswick had an excellent performance this evening. They showed a lot of depth, especially with Jackie Half's absence. They've had to reach into their lineup and bring up some of the other girls that perhaps wouldn't have seen as much action. But they're all holding their own. They're doing a nice job. And I'm sure they're working hard to reach those qualifying scores and get themselves individually and as a team into the sectional tournament.
So once again, Shawnee wins 99.65 to East Brunswick 95.8, and for Sarah Brockstein, a sweep. On all four events, she's the all-around champion. Before we close out, any final remarks?
No, I'm just looking forward to East Brunswick's improving upon these routines. The girls have a good nucleus here, and with some hard work and cleaning up in the execution amplitude areas especially, they should be able to wrap up their season very strongly.
Well, Leslie, it was a pleasure working with you. Shawnee improves to 2-1 with the win today. East Brunswick will fall to 2-3. Special thanks to our technical staff here, Pete Cantamessa, Dave Ambrosi, and Scott White. For Leslie Gatner, I'm Ryan Williams. We'll see you next time on Channel 8 Sports.